The airport was already awake long before the sun rose, and so was the quiet man who walked through its sliding doors every morning. He wore the same simple uniform he had worn for years, pushed the same old cleaning cart, and moved with the same steady pace that made him almost invisible to everyone rushing past. He never tried to stand out. In fact, he had grown used to blending into the background like a moving shadow. He arrived earlier than most of the staff, and the silence of dawn always felt comforting to him. When he walked across the shiny tiles, his footsteps echoed softly, almost like part of the building's rhythm. He knew every corner of that airport better than anyone else. He knew which chair wobbled, which light flickered, which automatic door opened with a slight delay. It was his world, even if no one realized it. Travelers rarely looked at him. They passed with their heavy bags, their tired faces, their impatient expressions, and their hurried steps. To them, he was just the man mopping the floor or wiping the windows. Someone necessary, but forgettable. Someone who didn't matter to their stories. He didn't mind. At least he had convinced himself he didn't. Over time, he learned that people often saw only what they wanted to see. And what they wanted to see was a janitor, nothing more. But tucked away near the staff lounge, hidden in a corner where only tired workers rested during breaks, was an old piano. The wood was scratched, the keys were yellowed, and the sound wasn't perfect. Most people ignored it. Some didn't even know it existed. But every time he passed by it, his eyes lingered just a little longer. He never touched it during the day. The airport was too busy, too loud, too crowded. But in the very early mornings, when the world was still half asleep, he would sometimes pause and rest his hand gently on the edge of the piano. It reminded him of a time before life became about paying bills and keeping a job. A time when he played not for an audience, but for himself. There had been a moment, years ago, when he dreamed of being on a stage. But life had its own way of changing paths. So the dream faded quietly, like a candle that slowly burns out. Still, something inside him stayed alive, even if it slept most of the time. The day everything changed started like any other. He pushed his cart through Terminal B, sweeping away bits of paper and wiping smudges off glass panels. The morning flights were delayed due to heavy fog, and the waiting area filled with frustrated travelers. People tapped their feet, checked their watches, complained about missing meetings or losing time. A tense mood spread across the terminal, the kind that made even the simplest sound feel louder. He kept working silently. But as he walked toward the staff area, he noticed that a group of passengers had wandered near the lounge to find seats. They were tired, annoyed, and some were even lying across their bags. A few children were restless. The air felt heavy, like the whole building was frowning. He continued mopping the floor, not wanting to disturb anyone. But as he moved closer to the piano, he felt a familiar pull inside him. The piano was right there, only a few steps away. His hands paused on the mop handle. Memories flickered in his mind late nights at home, when he used to play to release the stress of the day, mornings when he woke up early, just to touch the keys before work. He looked around. People were too caught up in their own problems to notice him. He placed the mop gently against the wall and took a small step toward the piano. His heart beat a little faster, not because of fear, but because he knew how long it had been since he allowed himself even a moment near it. Just then, a passenger looked at him. The man chuckled softly and said, "Hey, janitor, you know how to play that thing?" The comment wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. It was the kind of remark people made when they believed someone's role in life was fixed. A few others glanced up, curious. Some smiled as if expecting a joke. They assumed he was just passing time. After all, what could someone like him possibly know about music? The quiet man didn't answer right away. He simply ran his fingers lightly across the top of the piano. The wood felt cool under his skin. He wasn't sure if he should try, if this small moment would turn into something embarrassing. He thought of walking away. He really did. But something inside whispered to him, a quiet voice he hadn't heard in a long time. It told him to sit, just sit and touch the keys once. He lowered himself onto the bench, slowly, almost like he expected someone to stop him. But no one did. A few passengers shifted, waiting to see what he would do. Some thought he might play a clumsy tune. Others expected him to tap a few random keys just to make the children laugh. But he wasn't thinking about them. He was thinking about the countless mornings he walked past this piano, wishing he had the courage to sit down. He placed his hands gently on the keys. They felt familiar, even after all these years. At first, he pressed just one note. A soft, hesitant sound floated into the air. A few people turned around. He pressed another, then another. Letting the simple tones settle into the quiet corner of the lounge. He closed his eyes for a brief second. His breathing slowed. His shoulders relaxed. And in that moment, without fanfare, without planning, without anyone expecting anything from him, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt like himself. The restless noise of the passengers, the beeping of airport machines, the announcements over the speakers, everything faded. He wasn't the janitor anymore. He wasn't the man people ignored. He was just someone who loved music, sitting in front of an old piano. And slowly, without even thinking, his fingers prepared to play in a way he hadn't allowed himself to in a very long time. The moment he touched the keys again, something inside him unlocked. At first, he played softly, almost shyly, as if trying to remember how the music was supposed to feel. His hands moved slowly, testing each note like someone dipping their feet into cold water. The passengers nearby glanced over with mild interest, expecting nothing more than a few random sounds or a simple tune they could forget in a minute. But as he continued, the melody began to take shape. It grew smoother, warmer, fuller. His fingers moved from one key to the next with a gentle confidence, like they were waking up from a long sleep. The sound drifted into the air, mixing with the quiet chatter of the airport and the echo of luggage wheels rolling in the distance. The people closest to him lowered their voices, listening without meaning to. A few sat up straighter. A couple of kids stopped moving around and turned their heads toward the piano as if something had caught their attention. Even the man who had teased him earlier raised an eyebrow, surprised that the janitor could play anything at all. The quiet man kept his eyes fixed on the keys. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't even thinking about the people watching him. For the first time in years, he felt the music pulling him in, guiding him. Each note carried a memory. Each chord carried a feeling moments he had kept locked away for so long. He remembered sitting on the floor of a small room as a child while his older cousin played an upright piano. He remembered sneaking into the school music room during break time to touch the keys when no one was around. He remembered saving money for months just to pay for a single music lesson. And he remembered the day he had to leave those dreams behind because real life demanded that he work, earn, survive. His hands moved faster as the memories washed over him. The quiet lounge began filling with a richer, stronger melody. It wasn't perfect. Some notes were slightly uneven, and the old piano added its own rough texture to the sound. But the emotion behind the music made it beautiful. People walking by slowed down. Some turned their heads. One person carrying coffee stopped mid-step when the music reached a higher note that echoed down the hall. Another traveler nudged the person sitting next to them and pointed quietly toward the lounge. Within minutes, a small crowd formed, not chaotic, just quietly drawn in. Some leaned against the walls. Others stood with their bags at their feet. A few sat down on the benches, resting their elbows on their knees, listening closely. There was something peaceful about the moment, something calming. The airport, normally full of stress and rushing footsteps, suddenly felt like a place where time had slowed. A woman with a tired face lifted her phone and started recording. She didn't want to interrupt the moment with noise. She simply held her phone at chest level, capturing the scene. A few others did the same, whispering softly so they wouldn't break the atmosphere. The quiet man had no idea he was being recorded. He had gone somewhere else in his mind, a place where music was still part of him. His fingers moved smoothly now, gliding across the keys as if the old piano had been waiting for him. Every sound he played was honest, simple, and filled with the kind of emotion that didn't need big words or explanations. A young boy sitting nearby leaned forward, eyes wide. He tugged on his mother's sleeve and whispered, "He's really good." His mother nodded, surprised too. One airport worker carrying cleaning supplies stopped walking and watched from a distance. She had seen him many times sweeping floors and emptying bins, but she had never seen this side of him. It made her realize how much people assume about someone based only on their job. The melody shifted. It became softer again, almost like a memory fading into the distance. His shoulders relaxed. His breathing deepened. He felt the stress of years melting away, replaced by the quiet warmth of doing something he loved. The crowd sensed the change in the music, and their expressions softened with it. Some closed their eyes. Others smiled faintly. The atmosphere around them felt different, like a heavy weight had lifted from the room. But then, something unexpected happened at Dot as he played a delicate run of notes. One of the airport speakers crackled to life with a loud announcement about a gate change. The sudden noise jolted everyone, and a few people flinched. The quiet man's fingers hesitated for a moment, almost losing the rhythm. But instead of stopping, he breathed deeply and let the music guide him back. He smoothed the melody into something softer, gentler, weaving the disruption into the performance, like it was part of the journey. The crowd admired that. They could see he wasn't just playing keys. He was feeling every moment. Little by little, the noisy announcement faded, and the music once again took control of the space. The man who had teased him earlier leaned back, looking almost embarrassed by his earlier comment. He rubbed his chin, whispering, "Didn't expect that." A few people around him nodded silently. One traveler, an older gentleman with silver hair, rested his suitcase beside him and listened with deep attention. He wiped the corner of his eye discreetly. The music had touched something inside him, too, something he hadn't expected while waiting for a delayed flight. Another worker, a security officer, stood near the entrance of the lounge. He crossed his arms and shook his head gently, amazed. "We walk past people every day without knowing what they carry inside," he murmured. But the quiet man at the piano wasn't thinking about any of this. His world had narrowed to the keys, the music, and the small bit of peace it gave him. His hands flowed across the piano with a mixture of care and freedom. He didn't know if he would ever get a moment like this again, so he played as if trying to pour years of silence into one single melody. The crowd grew thicker as more passengers noticed the music. Some took out their phones. Others simply stood still, appreciating the rare moment. Even the workers who were supposed to be rushing around slowed down to listen. Though no one said it aloud. Everyone felt the same thing. The music was washing away the frustration of delays, the stress of travel, the noise of the day. It made them feel human again. The quiet man didn't know that people were recording him. He didn't know that his simple moment of courage was becoming something larger. All he knew was that he had allowed himself to play again, and the feeling was something he had missed more than he realized. He lifted his hands gently from the keys as the melody came to an end. The final notes lingered in the air, light and soft, fading slowly like a whisper. He didn't turn around yet. He kept his eyes on the piano, breathing quietly. He wasn't sure if anyone had even listened, but the moment he sat still, the room behind him filled with something he had not expected. A wave of quiet applause, not loud, not chaotic, just soft, sincere clapping from people who had been deeply moved and didn't know how else to thank him. He froze for a second, surprised. His chest tightened, not from fear, but from something warm and overwhelming. He finally turned around and saw the crowd, people smiling, nodding, thanking him with their eyes. He had never imagined that a simple moment like this could change anything. But part two was just the beginning of something much bigger that he didn't yet see coming. The applause was still echoing in his ears long after it faded. It wasn't loud, but it felt louder than any sound he had heard in years. He had spent most of his life working quietly, unnoticed, blending into the background of busy halls and tired travelers. So the moment people clapped for him, even softly, felt unreal, like it was happening to someone else. He stood up slowly from the piano bench. His hands trembled a little, and he wiped them on his uniform without thinking. He didn't know how to react. He had never been the center of attention. He had never been in a moment where people weren't rushing past him, but instead looking at him with appreciation. For a second, he wondered if he should apologize for taking up space, for touching the piano, for stopping his work. But then he saw the smile, small, sincere, warm, and he realized there was no need for apology. A few people approached him, not in a loud or overwhelming way, but gently. A woman with a backpack said softly, "That was beautiful. Thank you. I really needed that today." Another traveler nodded and said, "You play from the heart. That's rare." An older man gave him a thumbs up, his eyes still a little watery. He didn't know what to say. He only nodded, giving a small, shy smile. He wasn't used to compliments. He wasn't used to anyone noticing him at all. Before he could return to his cleaning cart, a young airport worker came running toward him, holding a phone. The worker looked excited, but tried not to be too loud. "Sir," the worker said, breathing heavily, "someone posted your video online already. Look at this." He held out the phone, and the quiet man leaned in cautiously. There, on the screen, was a video of him sitting at the old piano, his hands moving gently over the keys. The angle was from the side, showing the passengers gathered behind him, all listening as if they had forgotten they were in an airport. The video had already gained some views, far more than he expected for something posted only minutes earlier. He blinked, confused. Why? Why would anyone film me?" he asked softly. The worker grinned. "Because you played really well. People love moments like this. Real moments. Honest moments." The quiet man felt a strange mix of fear and surprise. He had never wanted attention. He had never tried to be seen. But now, suddenly, he was. A group of children came closer, smiling shyly. One of them said, "Can you play more?" The boy's eyes were bright with excitement. He shook his head gently. "Maybe later. I need to get back to work." He pointed toward his cleaning cart, trying to escape before the attention overwhelmed him. But something about the children's hopeful faces stayed with him. He didn't make promises, but he didn't say no either. He walked back to his cart and picked up the mop. His hands were still warm from the piano keys. As he pushed the cart down the hall, he noticed more people watching him, not in a judging way, but with newfound respect. Some nodded toward him. Some gave him smiles. Some whispered to one another. He wondered if this moment would fade quickly, like everything usually did. Maybe people would forget after a few minutes. Maybe the video would stop getting views. Maybe life would go back to normal. But something in the air felt different. He continued his shift, sweeping the halls, wiping the windows, emptying trash bins, and doing what he had always done. But today, Every task felt lighter, as if a part of his heart had woken up. Meanwhile, the video kept spreading. A teen sitting in the waiting area watched it on her phone, then shared it with her mother. A businessman forwarded it to his family group chat. A flight attendant played it for her coworkers during their break. Some people watched it silently with headphones. Others listened together, pointing out the emotion in the music. The airport slowly filled with whispers. Did you hear the janitor play the piano? Did you see the video? It's amazing. But the quiet man knew nothing about what was happening outside the walls of the terminal. He didn't check his phone often. He didn't use social media much. His world was simple. Clean the floors, keep the airport tidy, finish his shift. That was enough. Hours passed. The fog cleared. Flights resumed. The airport returned to its usual noise and rush. But every now and then, someone recognized him and smiled. Some pointed quietly. A few thanked him again. He wasn't sure how to feel about it. Later that evening, after most of the passengers from the delayed flights had moved on, he returned to the staff lounge. The piano sat where it always did, silent, old, and a little worn. He paused for a long moment, staring at it. He remembered the sound of the applause. He remembered the kids asking him to play again. He remembered the worker showing him the video. He sat on the bench once more, not to perform, not for anyone else, but just to breathe. The keys were cool under his fingers. He pressed one note, just one. The soft sound filled the empty room. He closed his eyes. For a few minutes, he played only for himself. No audience, no pressure, no attention. Just him and the music he had pushed aside for so many years. He didn't hear the quiet footsteps behind him. When he finished the small tune and lifted his hands from the keys, he turned slightly and saw the same airport worker standing there, smiling. "You should see this," the worker said. Holding up his phone again, the quiet man took a few steps closer, unsure of what to expect. This time, the video had thousands of views, then tens of thousands, and the likes, the comments, the shares, they were increasing every minute. He felt his heart skip a beat. Why is this happening? He whispered. The worker shrugged, still smiling. Because the world loves real things. You didn't try to impress anyone. You just played. And people felt it. The quiet man didn't know what to say. Words felt too small for the swirl of emotions inside him. A moment ago, he had been alone in the lounge. Now he felt like the entire world was looking at him. For the first time in many years, he wondered if the dream he had married wasn't truly gone. Maybe it had just been sleeping, waiting for the right moment. He sat back down on the bench, staring at the keys. He asked quietly, almost to himself, "Do you think people will forget tomorrow?" The worker shook his head. "I don't think so." The quiet man looked around the room, suddenly feeling things shift inside him, hope mixed with fear, excitement mixed with disbelief. He had no idea that this small moment in an airport lounge was about to spread far beyond the walls he cleaned every day. He had no idea how far the video would reach, or what opportunities it would bring. All he knew was that he had played from the heart. And somehow, that had been enough to wake something in people everywhere. Part 3 ended with him sitting quietly at the piano, unaware that his life, once silent and unnoticed, was about to change in ways he had never imagined. By the next morning, the airport felt different, even before he stepped inside. The sky was still pale, the halls still quiet, and the early travelers still moved around with sleepy steps. But there was something else in the air, something he couldn't name yet. He walked through the sliding doors as he always did, pushing his old cleaning cart. His routine never changed. He clocked in, adjusted his gloves, and began sweeping near the entrance. But today, people were noticing him before he even realized why. A young couple walked past, whispering softly while glancing at him. A man holding coffee smiled in his direction. A woman passing by lifted her phone slightly, almost as if she wanted to take a picture, but didn't know if it was appropriate. He didn't understand at first. He thought maybe something was wrong with his uniform, but then a worker from the information counter rushed up to him with wide eyes. "You're on the news," she said excitedly. "Your video, everyone's talking about it." He blinked. "What video?" he asked, confused. "The one of you playing the piano. It went everywhere overnight. Thousands are sharing it. Some pages reposted it. People are calling you the airport pianist." He felt his chest tighten. Not in a painful way, more like shock settling in. "Everywhere?" he repeated softly. She nodded eagerly. "Yes, everywhere. It's all over the internet." He didn't know what to say. He had lived his whole life quietly, trying not to be in anyone's way. And now, suddenly, people were looking at him as if he had done something extraordinary. He continued cleaning, but his hands felt unsteady. Every time someone looked at him with recognition, he felt a gentle wave of disbelief. He wasn't used to eyes following him. He wasn't used to people knowing who he was. Later in the morning, as he worked near the waiting area, a small group approached him. "Excuse me," one of them said politely. "Are you the man who played the piano yesterday?" He hesitated. I guess so." A few of them smiled warmly. "Your music was beautiful. It really touched us. Thank you." He didn't know how to respond. He simply nodded, giving another shy smile before returning to his work. But as he moved through the terminal, it became clear that something had changed forever. People weren't just noticing him, they were appreciating him. He tried to ignore the attention, tried to stay focused on his tasks. But everywhere he went, someone whispered, pointed, or smiled at him. A few travelers came up to shake his hand. A teenager asked if they could take a photo with him. A group of flight attendants waved to him as they passed. He felt overwhelmed. At one point, he escaped to the quiet staff lounge, needing a moment to breathe. The old piano still sat in the corner, waiting silently. He stared at it for a long time. How odd, he thought. Something so simple. One moment of music. And now the world was reacting. He sat down on the bench again. Not to play, but to think. He remembered the years of struggle, the dreams he tucked away, the nights he walked past music shops, wishing he could afford time or lessons or anything that would let him grow. He remembered, telling himself that life didn't owe him dreams, it owed him work. Yet here he was, sitting in front of a piano that had changed everything overnight. While he rested there, the same airport worker from the day before rushed in. "Sir, you need to see this again," the worker said, holding up his phone. He took a deep breath and looked. The video had now crossed 1 million views. He stared. His hands went cold. His throat tightened. 1 million. He had never imagined anything he did would reach even 1,000 people, let alone millions. He sat back, stunned. Why? Why do they care so much? He whispered. "Because your playing feels real," the worker replied. "People can feel your heart in it." A silence stretched between them. Before he could say anything else, someone else entered the lounge, a woman, wearing an airport badge, holding a clipboard. She looked official. "Sir," she said with a polite smile, "the airport administration wants to speak with you when you're free. It's about your piano video." He froze. Did I do something wrong? She shook her head quickly. No, nothing like that. They're impressed. They just want to talk." He nodded slowly, unsure of what that meant. A little later, after finishing a section of his cleaning duty, he made his way to the administrative office. His steps were small and nervous. He had never been called here before. He wondered if maybe they thought he had been using work hours to play, or if someone complained. But when he walked in, he saw warm smiles instead of serious faces. "Please sit," one of the administrators said. "We wanted to congratulate you. Your video is bringing positive attention to this airport. People are traveling here just because of your performance." He blinked. "People are coming here? Because of me?" "Yes," another administrator replied. "And we wanted to offer something. We'd like you to play in the main hall during certain hours only, if you're comfortable, of course. Not as a janitor, but as the airport's featured pianist." He felt the breath rush out of him. "Featured pianist?" "Yes. We'll adjust your schedule, give you time slots, and still let you keep your current job if you want. But people love your music, and we think it would add something special to the airport." He stared at them, stunned. His heart pounded hard. This felt impossible, like a dream someone else should be having. I don't know if I can," he said quietly. "I've never done anything like that." The administrator leaned forward. "You don't have to be perfect. Just be you. That's what people love." He felt overwhelmed. His life had always been simple, predictable. Now, suddenly, he was being asked to step into a spotlight he never imagined. He needed time to think, so they gave him the rest of the break to decide. He went back to the piano and sat alone again, staring at the keys. His fingers hovered over them, unsure could he do it? Did he even deserve it? He took a deep breath and pressed a single note, then another. Slowly, a melody formed one filled with uncertainty, hope, fear, and something he hadn't felt in years, possibility. As he played, he didn't notice another small gathering forming outside the lounge window. People passing by heard the soft music and paused to listen. Some placed their hands on their hearts. Others simply closed their eyes. When he finally stopped playing, he realized that more people had gathered to hear him again, people who didn't even know he was practicing. They clapped softly, and at that moment, he knew the answer. He stood up from the bench, his hands trembling slightly, but this time, it wasn't from fear. He walked back to the administrative office. "I'll do it," he said quietly. And just like that, Part 4 ended with a decision that would open the door to the biggest chapter of his life. The news about the airport video kept spreading, and before long, it reached places far beyond what anyone at the airport had imagined. People from different countries were leaving comments, sharing the clip, and writing about how a quiet man in a simple uniform had moved their hearts with just a piano. What made the story even more touching was that he had not given a speech, not tried to act special, and not shown any sign of wanting fame. He had only sat down to play because he loved music. And somehow, that honesty reached millions. He kept going to work like normal, even after the video crossed millions of views. Some of his coworkers were more excited about it than he was. They kept repeating numbers, showing him screenshots, and telling him that big pages were sharing the clip. He would smile, thank them, and continue with his tasks. But deep down, he felt something new, a warmth he had not felt in many years. It was not pride. It was that quiet feeling that comes when a person finally realizes that what they love has value. One morning, a group of airport workers approached him near the staff room. They were carrying a printed banner with his picture at the piano and a long list of comments from people around the world. Some workers were smiling so wide they could hardly speak. He felt shy at first, trying to step aside, but they gently pulled him back and said he deserved a small celebration. They set up a table with tea and snacks, and the staff from different departments joined in. Even workers who usually stayed serious softened their expressions that day. They gave him a chance to speak, but he just said a few simple words. He thanked them for being kind and said he never expected anything like this. He added that music had helped him during hard times, and he only hoped it brought peace to others in the same way. His message was short, but people listened with full attention. In their eyes, he had already said more than enough. A few days later, the airport management invited him to the main office. He felt nervous walking down the long hallway, unsure of what they wanted. When he entered the room, he found the director and a small team waiting for him. They had warm faces and kind smiles. The director explained that they had been watching the positive response to the video and felt proud that it happened in their airport. He said the moment represented kindness, humility, and hidden talent, all things the world needed more of. Then came the part he never expected. The director told him they wanted to officially add a piano performance segment in the airport lounge. Not every day, not as a full job, but as a special feature. They wanted him to be the one who opened this new idea. He stared at them quietly, unsure how to react. He had always loved playing the piano, but the idea of performing in front of large groups made him nervous. Yet something inside him said this was a chance he should not turn away from. He slowly agreed, and the room filled with smiles. One of the managers said people needed moments like this during their travels, something that reminded them of gentleness in a world full of rushing. And his music had already proven it could do just that. The day of the first official performance came quickly. The airport lounge had more people than usual. Some had come early because they saw the announcement online, while others were simply travelers who happened to witness the moment. He sat at the same old piano, the one he had played so many times when the area was almost empty. But today, the air felt different. There was excitement, but also a calm silence, as if everyone knew something meaningful was about to happen. He took a deep breath, placed his hands on the keys, and began to play. The first notes were soft, floating across the room like a warm breeze. People stopped walking. Some put down their bags, some sat on the floor, and some recorded the moment with their phones. But most simply watched with quiet eyes, absorbing the music the same way they would absorb a sunrise with every melody. He let go of years of struggle, years of being overlooked, of doing hard work without being seen, of carrying dreams quietly in the corners of his heart. He poured all of that into the music, and the music answered by filling the room with a kind of peace that could not be explained with words. When he finished, the crowd slowly started clapping, not loud, not wild, but deep and heartfelt. Some people stood. Some wiped their eyes. One little boy ran up to him and said he wanted to learn piano one day. A woman told him she had been stressed for days, but his music made her breathe again. A traveler said he felt like he had been given a gift. He nodded gently, grateful for every word. He did not feel like a star or a performer. He still felt like himself, just a man who loved the piano. But now he also felt something else. Acceptance. As he walked back to the staff area, a group of officers stopped him. They were smiling and joking lightly, telling him that the airport was lucky to have him. One of them said something that he remembered for a long time. Sometimes the ones we overlook are the ones the world ends up celebrating. Those words followed him like a soft echo. Over the next weeks, life blended into a balance. He continued his cleaning duties with the same respect and care he always had. And every few days he returned to the piano to share a short performance. People continued recording, sharing, and talking about him. Some travel bloggers visited the airport, hoping to capture the moment. But still, he never tried to change who he was. He kept his uniform, his calm, and his humble way of speaking. As more time passed, the world slowly moved on to new stories, new clips, new headlines. But his story did not fade completely. People still remembered the feeling. They remembered how a simple act had brought strangers together. They remembered how someone who was not chasing fame managed to touch millions. Sometimes, when the airport was quieter, he would sit by the piano after his shift. The lights around him would dim slightly, and the sound of rolling luggage would echo through the halls. He would play gentle notes just for himself, knowing nobody was watching. Those moments were his favorite. He did not need crowds. He did not need applause. He only needed music. And so his life continued with the same rhythm, the same heart, and the same quiet strength. People might forget the video one day, but the impact was already made. Somewhere across the world, someone would remember him when they heard a soft piano tune. Someone would think of him when they saw an airport piano. Someone would smile at the memory of a humble man, turning an ordinary day into something beautiful. And that, more than anything, was enough for him.